I get inspiration from a lot of different places, and today I want to talk about the inspiration that I got from a lecture by a gentleman named Milton Glaser. And if the name rings a bell, it's because you have probably encountered some of his work without even knowing about it. Glaser was an artist and a graphic designer, and one of the most famous works that he ever produced was the I Love New York logo. It's kind of ironic because this was something that he literally dashed off in 2 minutes on a cocktail napkin, and it became the thing that basically defined his career from that point forward. He's done a lot of other stuff since, and he's written wonderfully and eloquently about art and the creative process. And back in 2002, he gave a lecture at the AIGA, the American Institute of Graphic Arts, called This Is What I Have Learned. And it consists of 10 bullet points of wisdom, things that he's gathered over the years, some of them very simple and Pythian, some of them a lot more complex. And the first one is, you can only work for people that you like. And the way he put this is that at the beginning of my practice, I felt the opposite. Professionalism inferred that you didn't necessarily have to like the people that you worked for and should maintain an arm's length relationship to them. In looking back, I discovered that all the work I had done was meaningful and significant coming out of an affectionate relationship with a client. Affection, trust, and sharing some common ground is the only way good work can be achieved. I've thought about this a great deal ever since I read it, because it seemed to me to have a great deal to say about what it means when you're a science fiction and fantasy author and you're trying to figure out what kind of audience you want to address. Because the default audience is basically everybody who reads. And then within that, there's this sub-audience of people who read science fiction and fantasy. And then within that, there are many, many other little sub-audiences for different kinds of science fiction and fantasy. And I've always felt that it doesn't really matter what we address ourselves to in those subdivisions as far as genre goes. You know, if you're writing something that could be slotted into this particular genre or that particular genre, to me what matters the most is that you don't hold your audience in contempt, that you don't simply see them as this vessel, this receptacle for whatever it is that you're doing as a way to justify what it is you're doing. When Glaser says you can only work for people you like, for me, this translates into you can only write for people that you respect. You can only write for an audience that you care about as people, not just as this, bland, faceless, homogenized audience, TM. And that's something that can kind of creep up on you. When I was originally casting around looking for stuff to write under my current imprint, when I was trying to define myself, basically, I came up with a lot of ideas that at first I thought were really sharp and really interesting and catchy, I guess would be a good word for it. But as I sat down to try and work on any one of them, they just sort of ran through my fingers. And I realized the problem was that I was second guessing. I was saying to myself, oh, this looks like something people will be interested in reading. But I was not asking myself, am I interested in actually spending a year working on this? And then I realized that because I didn't have that attitude towards the material, I would end up producing something that would basically end up holding the audience in contempt. I would be saying, okay, here's your story, now go away. And when this clicked for me, I said, I can only work on stories that I care about, and I can only write them for an audience that I also care about. I can't just toss this stuff out there. And so that really forced me to consider what kind of work I wanted to do and for what kind of an audience. And I realized it had to be an audience that I felt an affection for and a connection with. It couldn't just be people who were lining up to give me money because I was pushing their buttons, and because I was giving them some, suitably marketable variation on something they were already familiar with. I couldn't see myself doing that. So that was what I got out of that first point. And there are 9 others that I'm probably going to go into in other videos, but I wanted to start there and see what people thought. So see you around.